And now we got something a little bit different. It's called white metal. And I'm not too crazy about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I've had so many problems with it in my modeling. But Pat Rivard is evidently an expert, he tells me. And he's going to be here this evening talking about how to use white metal. Pat, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Well, first of all, I'm not the one who knows everything about white metal castings. I want to get that straight first. Thanks, Jim. Anyway, this is the kit that I've been putting together. I actually bought 3 of these, and I have a reason for them, for some of the models I have done already. It's an O-scale kit, number 308. It's a fixed boom crane car, and it's made by Crow River Productions. And there's also some rosin parts in there too. I'll show you them later on. You can see some of the cranes that I've already built down below. And one thing I want to point out with any kind of crazy glue that you use, I like the Loctite because it seems to have the best holding power that I have seen so far. There are others, but myself, I'm used to this one. I use the medium viscosity. Anyway, these are some of the tools you are going to need. Most of them are files. All kinds of shapes of files. You can see there's 2 different packages. These are smaller, these are larger. And then down here, you'll see some round ones and some triangular ones, and you name it, they're all there. I also have X-Acto knives, and I have a battery-powered Dremel tool in case my it's easier to handle. I find it's nice to do small work. And there's that big mean one down there, the battery-powered Dremel. That one does a pretty good job. If you can't do with this one here, it's not quite as strong. You'll also need some emery board. You might see one right up here. I usually have a couple of pieces of those. They actually work pretty good on white metal. And you also need lots of swearing, but I won't do that on here. Father Ron's watching. Anyway, here are some of the small parts that you're going to come across in this kit. There's the base for your boom, some gears, different types. This one here in particular will fit on the bottom of this one. You'll need a drill because none of these holes will fit the shafts that you're given to put into this kit. And there's one of them right there. And there's another one there. So I found that the best way is to get a size drill that will match the shaft that you got to put in there, and you'll have to re-drill these holes. I'll show you that later. Oh yeah, and there's another big file down there. I wonder where that one came from. And there it is again. Up here, you'll see some more additional parts. This is the pulley for your boom system. And then you'll see some of the hooks, the crane, some more gears. And those there, that one there is an old electric motor. That's what goes on to this here system on the backside. And this here is the base for your boom system right here. Goes underneath this. And you'll see here parts for the boom that you saw earlier already assembled. And this is one of the large electric motors that you put on. And that's what runs this whole system. So it makes it turn and swivel. Anyway, moving on. There's a close-up view of the pulley that you wrap your chain on or your cable on. And there's some more bearing blocks here that go on the end of this pulley. And over here, you'll see some braces, and there's that little electric motor again. And, oh yeah, there's some nut and bolt castings. And this here is the shaft that you're going to use for that boom to sit on, to spin on. Here is the high-powered electric motor with the gear that goes on the end of it. Now you see that hole has a burr in it, and you'll find that you'll have to use a drill to clean it out. And this is the base of the boom. And this here's the electric motor that sits on there, that one that you saw. It fits right on the back of this base. And this is the top of your boom. And these two indications right here are going to be where these brass rods will go in. It's quite tricky, but you'll see how it works. And up here, you'll see the one of the gears. Here, this is also a part that goes on the bottom of the base that the boom sits on and spins on. And here's some more of those bearing blocks. There's a cap to the top of the boom, and there's that rosin casting that this part will sit on. There it is there, assembled on top of that rosin casting. And I also have another little tool here I didn't mention, but there's a pick. I use that to get into some of the small spots to clean them up. Oh yeah, there's that big file again. Here's what I use that file for. I use it to put the bearing blocks on, and you'll see right here, there's a gap in the bottom. I usually put my finger on one end and push down on the other, and that's the only way I can flatten those things, unless you use it on a piece of glass. And then when I get done, I rub it back and forth on that file to clean the ream, the markings on the bottom that come off of your castings. Oh yeah, they call that a bastard file by the same. That's the real name for it. I also use it for leveling the base of the large motor that runs your crane itself. And it's a great file for cleaning this stuff. I find I just rub it back and forth, and next thing you know, you got a nice flat bottom. Oh yeah, these two little knobs right here, don't file them off. That's where your electric motor wires go to. Here's what I do with the drill and the Dremel. You have to use the electric one because it's the only way you'll get it to go through. I find you have to be very careful and watch your hands and fingers because you can go through so quick. Once it grabs a hold, you're gone. It's over with. You can see what I have to do with all those holes. Also, you'll see the two parts of that gear. It's a double, what they call a two-part casting. And what happens is when it comes out, they're not even. So that's where that three-cornered file comes in. And I tried to make it a little bit better so it doesn't look so outstanding when you put it on the part, on the building of it. And here's where that shaft goes, in that hole. This one here had to be drilled out the same. Whoops, gonna go too fast here. This one here had to be drilled the same. And this another one had to be drilled the same size. And oh yeah, over here you'll see what these brackets are used for later. And there's the hook, and there's the one of the nut and bolt castings you put on top of the boom. Now here's those parts you get for the cab on that crane. And they're made of that rosin casting. And a lot of times when you get this, you'll have to file off a lot of the parts on the edges and the ends to make them smooth and square. That's really tricky sometimes, but once you get it done, you'll see it looks pretty good when you do it. Up here, you'll see more of the gears and bearings. Man, there's so many gears and bearings, you wonder where they all go. That's where you need to have the plans in front of you so you can make sure you put them in the right place. Here's another, shows you just how bad some of these are. You have to take all that. That's very fine, easy to get off. You have to clean out the windows. And these are the two main parts where those arrows are. They show you the boom itself and the base of which it sits on. And that little plastic tube I showed you will go into that hole and into this hole. And then another thing you're going to have to drill out so it fits. Then when you put it together, that's where it'll sit. There's another part of it. That's part of the cab. This is your side parts of the cab. There's your roof, and there's your base. Here's what I do to prepare it for spraying. I have one of these little bases where I put all these alligator clips on a rod. I put them all on there and get them ready for painting. And here's all them little parts all sitting on them alligator clips in the spray booth ready to get hit. And there's the boom that's been built. Now you'll notice that the way this is bent, a lot of these you have to do it by hand. It gives you a pattern on your plans to do it with, and you have to take your time bending them and eyeball it so it looks right. It's pretty tricky, but if you take your time, you can do it right. And this is also glued onto the base. I put them together like that, then I spray paint them. Now here's the boom when you're looking down at it. It kind of looks kind of out of place here. Sometimes you got to play with it a little bit to straighten them up, but it is a little tricky. And there's the cross members you put on in between, and they're made of metal themselves. You have to cut them to fit. And there's one of the center pulleys, and then there's a hole up here to pass the string through to go across your main pulley at the top. There's those cross members. A little tricky to cut, make sure they fit. They give you a pattern on your plans, so you should be able to get it together pretty easily. You'll see some of the boom assembly already put together up here. You'll see more of it later. Now here's where those angle pieces go. And you have to glue them on, so I usually use the crazy glue on there to make sure it sticks, just like I do everything else. And here you'll see me fitting the bottom of these brackets with a board you have to cut them off to fit across the brackets. And there's something else I use to hold some of these stubborn parts together. You'll find that you'll have problems with it once in a while, but sometimes you have to force to get them to stay together. And there's that pulley again with the pillar blocks on the end of it, bearing blocks. And then you'll see here where that electric motor is sitting at the base of this shaft. Anyway, Jim, I'm going to hold off till next week to show you the rest of it. And there's lots of pictures of it already in place, so you'll see it there. Thanks, Jim.
Well, you make it look so easy, but I've had so much trouble with white metal in the past.
Well, bearing a few words, I mean, sometimes I have a lot of trouble too, but the outcome is really nice when you get done. It's just unbelievable. I've tried several different ways. Sometimes I'll assemble it, then I'll prime it. In this case, I'm assembling most of it and then priming it afterwards. Last time I put it all together, and then I had them already primed and cleaned and primed before that. And I found that the glue holds better on the metal itself rather than on the primer. So that's one of the tricks I've learned. And make sure the surface you're gluing together is either filed a little bit with that, that pad file which you use for your fingernails. Just clean it a little bit so that your glue will have a surface to stick to, because metal has a smooth surface usually, and it won't stick very well. That's what I've learned. Anyway.
Sounds like good advice to me. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you finish it up next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.